think it's pretty safe to say that everyone has probably had a scary or bad dream about high school at least once during those 4 years of your life. Whether it's about a surprise test, going to school in just your underwear, failing that game-winning play, or completely forgetting your lines during a performance. High school is a stressful time in your life, so it only makes sense that your brain will make up these scenarios in your dreams. But, have you ever had a scary dream about your high school 10 plus years after you've been out? Well, grab some popcorn or some leftover Halloween candy, get all cozy with your hot cider, and enjoy this Storytimes video on the spooky holiday about a dream I had this year. I was back at St. Patrick High School, the school I graduated from back in 2011 for some reason. It was probably something to do with me getting the old theater equipment, now that I'm no longer a student there, obviously, and the principal at that time is now retiring. I don't know. They were probably just going to throw it all away and figured it'd be one less thing they'd have to carry down themselves if I just took it. Dreams don't really make all the sense, you know. Anywho, Mr. Malone and I were walking down the stairway with my extremely outdated, but emotionally connected to soundboard equipment in my hands. When I got down to the bottom, he pointed out to a wooden door that was open on the underside of the stairway. I assumed he wanted me to go close it, so I went to do such a thing. And when I did, I noticed that inside there was another door that was open, and that second door looked like it was leading down to some underground tunnels. Back during the Cold War, my high school was one of the bomb shelters in the town, and rumor had it that there was a network of tunnels connecting the high school to the neighboring elementary school to the gym that was on campus. We were both surprised because we thought the only accessible entry to these tunnels were on the elementary school side. I asked if I could go explore. He said,
"Sure, that is your place."
Mr. Malone weirdly said, but I didn't care. I'm always up for a spooky, scary time. We walked down to, even by St. Patrick's standards, a really old-looking hallway with classrooms branching off from the hallway itself. This place looked like it really never left the 60s kind of vibe. Paint was peeling off the walls, lights were, even if they were still working, hanging by some wires on the end. There were broken lockers against the floor or dented against the wall. The smell of dead animals and animal droppings was everywhere, and broken glass from what at one time looked like were windows above the lockers looking into the classrooms themselves. Also, in those openings above the lockers looked like some kind of ventilation ducts that hung from room to room that connected everything together. It looked like there were still bathrooms at each end of the hallway, but the rooms nearest them weren't classrooms anymore. These rooms looked more like an office or some kind of break lounge kind of room, with disgusting remains of a couch and a sink full of who knows what clogging it. These rooms had one door that led to both the hallway and another that led to the neighboring classroom. Mr. Malone's phone went off. He answered the call but couldn't hear them properly, so he said he's seen enough and he'll see me back upstairs.
"Enjoy your time,"
he said as he made his way back up the stairs. I carried on in a weird mixture of horror and fascination by all the stuff left in each room. I can only compare it to a really well-designed school-themed haunted house, but real. There were things that looked like old tests and papers that were covered with still wet, red marks due to being the wrong answers. Moth-eaten lunch bags that looked more appealing than the moldy food poking out of them. And what looked like a detention room that had nail marks on the door that only had a handle on the hallway side. It was clear that these rooms and the hallways were still St. Patrick High School, by the faded greens, stained whites, and old Disney rubber hose cartoon-styled four-leaf clover mascots scattered here and there on the punny and cheesy school sayings and stuff on the walls. Hell, there was even a small half-melted clover person toy thing in the first bathroom that was somehow motion-activated and said,
"Clean up, clean up,"
when I cracked open the door to take a look inside that room. When I got to the end of the hallway, the lights flickered 3 times and then went out. Complete and total darkness engulfed my vision for barely a second or two, but it felt like an hour. When the lights hummed back, there was what looked like a freshman-age boy wearing a white polo and navy pants standing with me, but he was on the opposite side of the hallway, just staring up at the stairs to what I expected to be now a bricked-off hallway on the elementary school side. Fuck! I chuckle as I try to catch my breath. I didn't know anyone else would be down here, or even in the school besides Mr. Malone and I. The boy twitched at the mention of Mr. Malone's name, but didn't turn or say anything. For some reason I thought he may be Mr. Malone's oldest son, and I asked, "You must be Henry. He mentioned bringing some help." I lied to try to cover up my nerves.
Okay.
"Come again?" I asked as I took a half step closer to try to listen better.
Bell Cave.
The boy ever so weakly spat out.
Even with that damn Bell Cave.
There was a sound that I can only compare to of wet spaghetti hitting the floor as the lights began to flicker again. Within a blink of the eye, the boy was now hanging from the ceiling light fixtures a foot away from me and looking directly into my eyes. He had a capital F carved into his forehead and a bell curve-shaped gash deep enough in his chest that his organs were now falling out and splattering on the floor by my feet. His long intestine was now entangled with the same wiring that was hanging from the lights, with the smell of blood, burning flesh, and melting plastic filling my nose.
I wasn't good enough for him.
The boy shouted, spraying my face with blood and pus. The boy pulled one arm down and caused part of the ceiling to collapse, which fell on me and knocked me down. I crawled backwards into the small bathroom and kicked the door shut. I quickly tried to wedge a broken stall door that was on the ground under the handle to potentially buy some time from the thing. The sounds of someone choking or drowning, as well as wet slop pounding against the walls and door between us, and sparks echoed through, and it filled the room in no time. I'm looking up and I see that the rotting intestine and electrical wire vine thing was growing and starting to climb through the broken window above. I pushed myself up and bolted for the other door. I hear the sound of the wall collapsing behind me and a demonic wail can be heard. I get through the office's door into the hallway to see that this entire end of the hallway is now a massive pile of flesh and sparking wires. The mess is now crawling towards me at an unnatural speed. I turn and run down the hallway, lights flickering and the sound of the gross destruction thing behind me. I get to where would normally be the middle stairway when I feel a sharp, hot pain in my right foot and leg. It instantly drops me. My leg up to my knee had been sliced open by an electrical cable that shot up through the floor, through my boot, through my leg, and exploded outward. My blood is everywhere. I scream in pain as it withdraws back into the ground. I crawl into what looks like a nearby janitor closet and slam the door shut. I use my belt and some rags I find to tie my leg back into one piece again. Odd enough, the sound of the thing outside has stopped. It is completely quiet, with only the sound of my heart beating away like crazy. A chill fills the air.
He led you down here too, huh?
A soft female's voice whispers. I turn to see a half-solid, half-transparent, older-looking woman sitting in the corner, her hands on her knees. She looks like the photos I've seen of Mrs. Graham. Mrs. Graham was a teacher that passed away in front of her students during class back in 1999. Rumor in the theater department was that her spirit still walks the halls. My eyes widen.
Don't worry. I'm not like poor Garrett out there. I don't want to hurt you.
She looks down at my leg.
Ooh, I bet that stings, huh? I'm sorry, hon.
She shakes her head.
Mr. Malone always thought his method of teaching is unmatched.
She lifted a classic poison-shaped bottle.
And he cares so badly about those pristine test scores.
The sound of lockers being crushed outside the door is heard.
As you're probably aware by now, young Garrett didn't quite meet Mr. Malone's expectations, so...
She freezes. The room somehow gets darker and colder. Mrs. Graham's eyes turn pitch black. Her body becomes more solid, and the room is now freezing. Within a blink of the eye, she pops in front of me, lifts me off the ground, and starts to breathe what feels like the very air out of my lungs. I'm now suffocating. I don't know what happened, but just before I passed out, she shouted no and threw me through the door. My left shoulder is now dislocated, and there's shards of wood in that arm as well. I lift my head to see Mrs. Graham's eyes go back to how they were before, and she is now screaming at me to get up and run. Garrett is also there, closing the gap with every second. Mrs. Graham's screams shake the building, and the smell of natural gas is now present. I manage to push myself up and try my best to hobble down the hallway, with what I assume are the sounds of Mrs. Graham and Garrett fighting right behind me. I manage to somehow get my way back to the stairway and start to climb my way back to the top. However, once I get there, the door won't budge. I push, I pound, I scream with all my might. I put all my weight and remaining strength into one final attempt, and then finally, nothing. Nothing at all. I fall to the floor by the door, coughing up blood and choking on gas fumes. Just as I'm about to give up all hope, I fall backwards as the door opens. Unfortunately for me, Mr. Malone is standing above me. He smiles as he lifts me up off the ground.
Enjoyed your time?
He asks with a smile on his face.
Kind of surprised you made it. Both back to here and just through high school in general.
A sharp pain is felt in my chest. I look down. A knife is now embedded in my sternum.
Once again, enjoy your stay.
He throws me down the stairway, back into the tunnels.
Maybe someday kids will tell stories of you too.
He says as the last thing I see is him throwing a Zippo later down after me, causing everything in the tunnels to be engulfed with flames. And with that, we've come to the end of the story time. Let me know in the comments below if you ever had a dream like this before. If you thought that this was entertaining or spooky, give me a thumbs up and maybe subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more story time or see other videos in the future. If there's a story or a dream that you've had that you'd like me to share, get a hold of me, and there may be a video on it someday. I wish you all a happy Halloween, and until next time, I'll see you then.